Good afternoon once again. Thank you very much for your patience. I can see we're still logging in. Welcome everybody who is here, everybody joining us on Facebook Live. We are so happy to have you. Like they say, technology will fail you. Like Susan and I were just laughing here at 2 o'clock on the dot. But then here we are. So again, Hilary, may I ask you to say a word of prayer before we begin? We always begin our meetings with a word of prayer. Hilary?
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's bow our heads and pray. Almighty God, we bow before you this afternoon to thank you for a new day and a breath of life. As we look back, thank you, God, for the first session. It has been engaging. We commit this session unto your able hands. We pray that, God, you may guide us through from the very end to the very beginning of this very session. We pray for your guidance and let whatever we shall engage in through this session be impactful in our lives and helpful. I pray that shortly, bravely, and trusting in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Hilary. And now I'll ask Brian to introduce our Team Set Africa before we move on. Brian?
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Roger from Team Set Africa, the operations lead. Team Set Africa is a group of young minds made up of ICT guys, ICT-oriented guys who are here to bring you solutions to your ICT problems. We also conduct trainings on the companies, the youths. We have the CRMs, tailored business solutions also, which we do offer to companies, direct to them. We are glad to be part of this, to partner with you, as partner with Lorraine Epic. For this has been a great event, and we are hoping to have more of this, and so that we can enjoy and learn more and have treats on the youths. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. I don't know whether it was you who had a cartoon or something on. Allow me to quickly introduce Epic Lorraine Life Events. We are a service sector company specialized in project management, bursary fund management, operation support, and organizing memorable events. L recognizes the significance of cultural pride, cultural heritage, social unity, youth empowerment, support for the elderly, and celebration of life-defining events. Our mission is to consistently deliver value-driven, bespoke services that suit the uniqueness and peculiarities of each client's needs. And this is seen in our values, which are relationships, confidentiality, reliability, and compassion. L focuses on unique events, most of which fall on the annual calendar and are marked globally. We turn them into epic events that touch and inspire. One of those events is this week, where we've been celebrating International Youth Week since Monday. And we shall be ending the sessions tomorrow morning, which is the actual International Youth Day. And many of you may not know what or how this day was born. On December 17th, 1999, the UN General Assembly endorsed the recommendation made by the World Conference of Ministers responsible for youth. And that way, my friends, is how International Youth Day was formed. It was first celebrated on August 12, 2000, and ever since, the day has been used to educate society, which is what we have been doing entire of this week. So that is why we are here, and we are really pleased that you have joined us and have been a part of us since Monday. Now, allow me to quickly introduce our keynote speaker this afternoon. Her name is Jackie Muthoga. Jackie Muthoga is an expert in human resources and organizational development. She has vast experience in corporate and SME business. She currently works with entrepreneurs by introducing and managing their corporate governance process to help ensure sustainability and market attraction. Jackie is also a practicing psychologist, and in her other life, I was her sponsor in Rotary. Karibu sana, Jackie.
Asante, thank you, Lorraine. All right, guys, so this is exciting. As always, I love working with young people, and when those that are young at heart, we are all young to some extent somewhere. And like Lorraine has said, I think what people call a paradox. I have worked in quite a number of corporate companies, all the way to directorship in human resource and organizational development, after which then I decided to come and help entrepreneurs set up their corporate governance. And that's because I saw a big gap, especially on entrepreneurs who are coming and trying to work so hard in setting up companies. But one of the biggest gaps that was coming out was sustainability. What systems do I put in place to make sure my organization is sustainable? And there was an idea, out here that it's very expensive to set up corporate governance, but actually it is pretty simple. And so that is what I've been doing. As she has said, I'm a practicing psychologist as well. I'm a clinical psychologist, to be specific. And that is what I do in my not so free time. I'm also a mother, a wife, and I have hobbies as well. So I don't think we have a lot of free time out here. Now, youth. This topic made me think so much of myself when I was starting off. And a lot of the uncertainties that come with being a young person, having big dreams, and then you're in this environment where, COVID has hit, the economy is totally a mess, we're heading into elections, nobody knows where we are. And as a youth, it's easy to find yourself sitting there and asking yourself, wow, where do I head from here? How do I make ends meet? What will I look like in another, not even 10 years, 2 years? Where will I be? And it's important that, first of all, before we answer that question, we understand what is this generation like. Now, the generation that is up right now, what we're calling the youth, came from a background where we had the baby boomers, then we had the millennials, which is where I fall. Now, the baby boomers came when there was nothing. World War II had just finished. There was no economy. There was big hope of how good things could be. And so they came and they worked hard and they set us up. The industrial agricultural revolution took place, was nestled during this period, as much as had been taking place way before. This is when it was concretized. Now, come the millennials, and the millennials come to a point whereby things are being set, but we are also now changing, bringing in industrialization, bringing in technology. And so the millennials came into a background of bringing in processes that would sustain whatever the boomers had done. Now, the current generation was coming in to a setting where the background, the industrialization has been done, okay? And then now technology has already been introduced. So you're coming down to almost a safety net whereby the world is your footstool. You can be anything you want in this world. You can do anything you feel like. And you'll notice that whereas the older generation had been led to believing, you have to be a doctor to succeed, an engineer, a corporate, whatever it is to succeed, with this generation, they've been brought up to be told, your world is your footstool. You can be anything you want and you will succeed. And that is the truth, all right? Now, this session we're having today has come with a backdrop now of that is how we have been shown as a generation. And then, oh my goodness, Brexit happens, the dollar crashes, COVID is here, we're on the 4th wave, we're here at 7. And there's so much uncertainty. And the question is, were we prepared for this as a youth? And if we were not, how do we get ourselves prepared for this? Now, from my description of where this generation is, I want you to realize that you have what works for you based on how you have been. I'm trying to avoid using the word genetically embedded, all right? And so the first thing that you have is what they call grit. Grit is actually a psychology term, all right? And really, grit means a positive, non-cognitive trait that you have in you. Okay, now why this is important to know is because when we say it is non-cognitive, it has nothing to do with your mental capacity. You have it. All you have to do is reach in for it. And that is one thing that this current youth have that the rest of the generations did not have working for them. You naturally have been born with grit in you. We can, grit is you're the guts. I think that's what G stands for, which we are seeing out here. The youth of today, I mean, you cannot tell them you cannot do this. There's nothing beyond their reach. Youth today have guts, and you know, and it's part of your strength. Okay, you have no fear in you. That's how you've been brought up. That's what you've been handed over to. That other people would have struggled to develop in themselves, but you have it in you already. You have the guts to go out there, challenge anybody you want, challenge yourself. You have it in you. You have the resilience. You push and push and push. I mean, I look at sometimes the political scene and the young people who are coming up, and they have this resilience. Even if you tell them, oh, you're young, oh, you're this, it doesn't matter. I have resilience. Rusha mawe, tutakurushia back. Tear gas, we throw it back at you. You know, that's what you have. And whatever life throws at you, you can throw it back. Okay. The other thing that you have is initiative. I used to just sit and get an idea and be like, why is this being done this way? I can do it differently. Get up and do it. Other than waiting to be told, you know, this is the process, this is what we're going to follow. You already have it in your DNA. Initiative is something that you do not struggle with. It's in you. And the last one on grit is tenacity. You have it. And why I'm telling you what you have is because the moment you begin from a point of understanding, who am I? It becomes easier to become what you want. All right. Now, I'll give you my story. When I was, you know, starting off my career, I started off working at Chiromo, practicing what we used to call then abnormal psychology. And by the time now, I decided to transition to human resources because I went through a period of people who were laid off. It was the early 2000s, and that is when the government had, sorry, the biggest layoff to date. I mean, they laid off a lot of people. And where I was working, we dealt a lot with suicide. And I kept asking myself, were these people prepared for it? And I felt, let me go in, make a difference. Now, when I went in, I was 26 years old. And because of, you know, how I got in, of course, I went into government and I grew pretty quickly. So by 26, I was a manager. And I remember asking myself, where am I heading in life? And that's a question that's critical for you to ask yourself. Where am I heading in life? Okay. Now, you lay out a life plan and ask myself, at 30, where do I want to be? At 35, at 40, and detail it. Okay, and I'm going in terms of your career development, just give me an introduction, and other people will talk more in how you do it, but I'm really just going to touch on bits and pieces of this. Now, from there, the next thing I did was I Googled people who I thought were earning what I wanted to earn. So if I wanted to have a house by the age of 30, what does a house cost? It means I have to be making a turnover of what per month? Who are these making turnovers? What do they do? And then how did they get there? So I interrogated people's lives and I laid them down. And I started now making decisions based on how I thought these people had laid out their lives. And that's actually how I moved also from my practice into employment in corporate. Now, guys, the moment you're able to lay a life plan and be very specific to the numbers, I tell people, if you want to sit and imagine that I want to own a home by the time you're 30, 35, I want you to draw that home. See the curtains in that house, see the kitchen, see the utensils in that house. See your yard. When you step out of your house, what do you see? Visualize it. It will give you that hunger, okay? That takes you, that makes you now move towards achieving it. Okay, so have a life plan. A life plan does not say I'm going to do this job, I'm going to be employed at this time. No, it's about what will I achieve at what stage? How do I achieve it? Because it must be achieved. What that does is that it leaves you open for options, all right? One of the things that you have as a youth is that you are also very creative. Where the gap comes in is that having your creativity, having your perseverance, we find ourselves being unable to be consistent in developing of the skills. Remember, I've told you guys, you've come from a platform where you can be anything. It's no longer about having degrees. It's about being the best at what I do. All right. So one of the biggest and greatest advice that I give young people is be multi-skilled, because you have the capacity. These youth have the capacity to be multi-skilled. You have the resources to be multi-skilled. Go online. Whatever skill you want, you'll probably get it being offered, and you can do it on your phone at a price that is almost unimaginable, would have been unimaginable to us at our generation. But you have it with your phone. You have courses on your phones. Develop your skills. All right. I could be a marketer, and on the side, what can I be doing? I sell clothes. I make queen cakes. Okay. Go back to what I've told you that you already have. For you being multi-skilled and doing a lot of things on your plate comes very easily for you. Grab it. Jump onto it. Do these things as you're waiting, as you're growing your career. Get busy. Don't just sit in the house on Netflix. All right, don't just sit down, chit-chatting with people. Learn coding. I'm seeing coding being sold out here at, I think 5,000 shillings per program. Learn coding. Do whatever you want to. I see I have young people in my house, university, and I'm seeing them making crochets. And ask them, why would you start crocheting? They said, oh, it's the in thing now. Bikinis that are made of crochet is the in thing. And everyone in university wants to have a bikini. So what are my kids doing? They're crocheting as they pursue their degrees. Do something else. Use your energy, use what your God-given capabilities, and delve into it. Bake those cakes, guys. Draw. Build that skill, even as you're pursuing whatever academic, whatever the skill that you have. You have the capacity to be multi-skilled. I'll only talk about 2 other things. The next thing I'll touch on is what most people would call emotional intelligence, but I'll only touch on attitude and reaction. Your attitude will determine how far you will go. Why do I say that? Because there's a lot of discouragement right now with you. There's a lot of questioning of where am I heading? Will I really make it? You will make it. By hook, by crook, you will make it. And tell yourself that, okay? And with that now, you choose the attitude that you're going to wear with yourself. When we were in high school, I remember we used to be told by one of the teachers, when you got out of bed, throw out your blankets. It never hit me until later in life where that was important. And I realized, because the moment you throw out your blanket, you start that day with an energy. Whether you feel like it or not, it gives you an energy. But if you start like now with this cold, you start by removing a toe, remove your ankle, oh my God, then you put it back in bed, it's too cold. And try to move a knee, you can hand remove it out and bring it back in. No. You will carry that attitude with you the whole day. Whatever you do will not be too excellent. Throw out those blankets every morning. Whether you're throwing them out to go and watch Netflix, you're throwing them out to go and sit on your couch, throw out those blankets every morning, same day. If it's 6 o'clock, if it's 5 a.m., you make a choice, make it early in the morning, throw out those blankets. Get out, make your bed. The moment you make your bed, you're unable to go back to it. Okay? So that's how you need to start your day, with an attitude of winning, an attitude of energy, whether you feel it or not. Like they say, fake it till you make it. Get out of bed. Jump out of bed. Get out. And that will kickstart your day, all right? And your reaction is, what happens if I've jumped out of bed? I've kicked it out. I've gone out there, I've tried to sell something. I mean, I'm seeing guys even hawking with degrees, and I'm loving it. But I've come back home with nothing. How do you react? By jumping out of bed the next morning. By evaluating what you could have done different. And someone else will talk about that in detail. That's how you react. But if you go out there, you think you have not made it, and you come back the next morning and come out of your bed without energy, you have done yourself a major disservice. So jump out of that bed, guys. Get out, all right? And now the last thing I want to talk about that is so important that I wish someone had told me earlier. Get a spokesperson. Who is a spokesperson? For example, Lorraine has told you, she really held my hand at when I joined Rotary. Okay? She was my spokesperson. When I'm not present, who can speak for you? When you're not present, and make sure that this person knows you. Make sure that this person understands you. Have meetings with this person. Remind them. Okay? Remind, for example, I need to sit with Lorraine again. I mean, Lorraine, this is who I am. This is what I do. When you go to a sitting and they want somebody like this, remember me. Speak about me. Throw in a good word about me. Get a spokesperson. You can get mentors, you can get coaches, and someone else I'm sure has talked about that. But get a spokesperson. Get somebody who is ahead of you, who can open doors for you in conversations. And make sure you deliver. One of the things I always tell people who I open doors for is this. I don't expect you to be a small goal. I know you might fail, but I need to know that you did your best. Because I need my voice to remain strong in this industry. So when somebody opens a door for you, do your best. Don't go there and work for 2 days and then decide, nimechoka, adding no value to my life. I'm out, back to my bed. Do your best, right? Because how you perform determines the strength of that person's voice in that room for the next person. Get a spokesperson. Get a few if you can, and make sure don't let them down. And you'll find those opening for you bit by bit, right?
Oh, Jackie, wow. A powerful girl with few words, as always. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I don't know about everybody, but do you see the correlation of the discussions we've had from Monday? I mean, she's touched on emotional intelligence. That's what we discussed on Monday afternoon. And by the way, Jackie is a fantastic person to speak to when it comes to mental health as well. I just needed to mention that. And so, Jackie, thank you very much. I know you're staying on with us. We truly appreciate that. So let me quickly introduce our moderator for this afternoon. Again, our good friend who's been moderating with us at least twice this week. Her name is Esther Kirago. Esther is a writer, editor, communication consultant with 10 years experience. She has previously worked at Parents Magazine as an associate editor, spearheading content development and media relations in the publication. As a communication consultant, Esther has provided editorial and communication services for various entities, including NGOs, private organizations, startups, and even individuals. She's passionate about storytelling, especially on issues affecting women and girls. And currently she runs a weekly series on digital media dubbed Kenyan Women Series, where she amplifies voices of Kenyan women doing phenomenal work. And I really encourage you guys to have a look at the Kenyan Women Series. They've featured amazing women. Esther is an active member of the Association of Media Women in Kenya, AMWIC, and the Network of Women in Media and PR in Kenya, where she has organized and moderated several webinar sessions. Esther has a master's degree in communication studies from the University of Nairobi and a bachelor's of education, English and literature from Kenyatta University. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Esther Kirago as she takes us through the next session with our panelists. Karibu sana, Esther.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lorraine. And thank you to Jackie for that wonderful way of just introducing the session. We are so glad to have you on board. Thank you to all the participants. Thank you for attending this afternoon session. So with that said, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're keeping warm wherever you are. I know it's been a cold day, but at least where I am, I can see the sun attempting actually to come out. So I hope we can all be warm this afternoon. So we're so glad to have you on board. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on the career and self-development for youth. I just want to encourage all our participants, keep engaging with us. even as the session goes on. Post your comments, your questions, in the chat box, and then we'll post this later to our panelists. So with that said, I'd like to introduce our panelists so that we can get to the panel discussion. I'll do a brief introduction of each one of them. I'll start with Susan Kiamba. So Susan Kiamba is a learning and development consultant and career coach. She started her career with Barclays Bank, which is now Absa Bank Kenya, where she gained experience in the banking industry while establishing herself as a respected corporate trainer. Currently, she works as a learning and development consultant, a corporate trainer, a career coach, and she's widely known for her expertise in designing staff development programs and coaching professionals who need career clarity. Susan is also the founder and CEO of Blue Elite LLP, the creator of Unlock Your Career Growth Bootcamp, 4 Keys to Unlock Your Career Growth Training, and Unbank Your Career for banking professions. All these programs are designed to help professionals to get unstuck in their career, to gain clarity, to find direction and confidence in their next steps. And for sure, I think as long as you're in the career journey at one point or another, you're seeking clarity, you're seeking direction, you're looking for confidence to go to the next level. And even sometimes you're stuck and you want to be unstuck. So thank you so much, and karibu sana, Susan. We are happy to have you on board. Allow me to introduce our next panelist. So our next panelist is Asim Shah. He's the Executive Director, Tarpo Industries Limited, systematic therapist, and a life coach. He holds a Master's of Engineering in Manufacturing Engineering and Management from the University of Warwick, UK, and is currently pursuing yet another Master's of Engineering in Tensile Architecture at the Institute of Membrane Structures in Germany. So he leads a small management team of majority women running Tarpo while helping the technical side of the business through his engineering expertise. Often he offers big picture logistics for large scale events and conferences that have silently put the Kenyan events on the world map. And Asim, you'll tell us more about this. These conferences and events that you have silently put on the Kenyan map. We want to hear that. And then he has always been passionate about bringing out the best in people and inspiring them to activate their potential through self-awareness. He now combines life coaching and his love for outdoors by hosting luxury camping wellness retreats to inspire and nurture transformational change. Maybe Lorraine, that's the next place we should go, to those luxury camping wellness retreats held by Asim. So Asim is listed by the Business Daily as one of Kenya's top 40 under 40. That was in 2015 and 2016. He has been a member of the Rhino Charge Organizing Committee since 2015. He's also recovering from a nervous breakdown and PTSD since 2012. And he often self-reflects on his journey so far on leadership through depression. Welcome on board, Asim. We are so glad to have you here. Maybe you could just jump into Susan. You could begin by sharing with us your opening remarks, probably a brief about your journey into your career and self-development journey. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Esther. Good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to be here with each and every one of you. And as I had said to Lorraine when we spoke about the event earlier, this is a timely event. There is no better time to plan your journey, your career, like now, before you start, before you make all the mistakes that we are going to make. So like many young people, I was told, find a job, any job, figure out the details when you get ahead. Now that is the best and the worst advice at the same time. So it's the best advice because yes, it helps you become a bit focused and look for something, but it's the worst advice because it assumes you actually know how you are going to chart your path up ahead. So I'd always wanted to be in HR, and yet the job I got first was in sales. and I did not thrive as a salesperson. So to anybody who right now is in a career that they feel they are completely lost, I can relate. I was a salesperson who struggled, but in my struggles, I learned a lot. For example, sales is not about selling, sales about relationships. So for the next 7 years, it was a series of ups and downs as I tried to figure my way out to HR. And now standing here, I can see where I made the mistakes. And my programs actually are built on the strengths of my learnings from my mistakes, of just trying to figure it out. And I liked what Jackie said in her keynote speech, because your career is yours. If you don't own it, HR won't own it for you. Your boss won't own it for you. Your boss won't help you necessarily with it. You must own it. And then once you own it, you plan for it. And then once you plan for it, you actually work it out. So I think that's one of the things that standing here now, I can actually say I didn't do, but I would recommend anyone who's starting out, have a dream, know what that dream is, align it with who you are and what you do best, and then have a plan, a very detailed plan that will get you from one step to the next. And then lastly, you work out that plan. If I had had a plan when I was starting out my career, I'm pretty sure it would have taken me a shorter time to get to where I was, where I am now than it did. But then again, looking back, my mistakes, your benefit, and I get to share it with you. And hopefully you shall listen and not do the same things which I did. So that's a bit about my story. I finally figured it out, got 2 things that really helped me. I got a mentor, I got a coach. They helped me get some direction. They helped to guide me to make a plan. And based on that plan, I was able to progress and have been progressing since then. So Esther, that's my story. Ups and downs, but here I am today.
Great, good to hear. And we'll be looking forward to hearing more about the mistakes that you made, so that the young people who are here do not follow the same mistakes. We can learn from you, as you know. Yeah. And with that said, we'll go to Asim. Kindly give us your opening remarks and just your journey into the career.
Sure. Thanks, Esther. I had a very brief conversation with Lorraine about this, and she sent me a bunch of questions, and she said, find a way of talking about this and find a way of relating to it. And I was like, okay. Just like what Susan said, it's very, very timely. And what I decided to do was put my my journey on a presentation. So I'm just going to share that on the screen. Hopefully it won't take that long. It should be on its way.
All right.
You
can carry on, perhaps, as I wait for it. Yeah.
Cool. So I want to start by saying I have imposter syndrome, because I'm not so sure what gives me the right to speak to the audience. But it's because I want to challenge the rules and structures established by others, so that we can grow in our own way. So Jackie had a very interesting thing she mentioned in her speech about how the new generation is coming in to fit into the structures that were established. And I think my job through my sort of 10, 12 years in a professional aspect has been to keep challenging whether those structures make sense or not anymore. And I think the guys who are in the audience who know me know that I ask questions to shift perspective all the time. So as much as I've got imposter syndrome, I'm feeling like I'm challenging the norms and the traditions of what we as the youth have been told to do. Very much like what Susan said as well. She was told this is what you need to be doing as your job. But actually, is that really the case? So when Lorraine and I were speaking, and when she sent me those questions, I was like, okay, let me go back and connect with the time when I was making career choices, and I was about to finish high school. I was heading towards university, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was so confused that I decided to go for a psychometric test that would help me figure out what was most suited for me. Or maybe Lorraine, if you can go to the next slide. Yeah. So I had a whole list of suggested careers that came out of that assessment, and it's within chaos there is more chaos, and so I had to pick something in the end. Eventually, I decided on engineering. I have never had a more challenging time dealing with academic mathematics. But the reason I went with engineering was because it sounded like it was going to be the most challenging. And I think I'll come back to that maybe when I'm addressing some questions. I can go on to the next slide. I think I'm just also borrowing from what was being said in the morning about networking and also borrowing from what Jackie was saying about go get what you want to go get. When I was at university, I exposed myself to all these things. I was volunteering, I was working, I was networking with my lecturers. I did a bit of travel, attended career talks, to the extent where I even went to classes that were not in my course. I would figure out where there was a lecture on something in somebody else's course and find my way there. One of the experiences that I remember now, and I was remembering when I was thinking about all these, was how we are in a very cold Nairobi at the moment, and I see, especially when I'm in the office, people are wearing gloves. And I remember going out to play hockey with no gloves in the snow. And these are little experiences that teach you a lot of different things. So being out there, going through a bunch of stuff, just like Jackie was saying, go and do something. I was doing something and I was getting a lot of information back. Maybe Lorraine can do the next slide. So I did that first master's and I've done the second master's now. And I think the most useful part of networking has been the fact that I've got contacts in pretty much every corner of the world. It means that I have somebody to reach out to, some expert whenever I need them. I have no idea when I'm going to need them. And this kind of stuff is a continuous journey. So if I'm talking about self and career development, I'm talking about finding and identifying experts all around the world. And you meet them, you keep in touch with them. And that's something that I've managed to do really well. So one of the questions that Lorraine was asking me about is how do the youth figure out what they want to do? And if I reflect back on what I went through, it was more like I did a lot of work experience in various forms, paid and not paid. And that helped me figure out where my real interests were. And it made me realize that there were certain things that I didn't want to do. And again, it's a continuous journey. It's not just something that you do during university. You will have something in your career and you will figure out that actually right now I don't want to do this. And it's a sign. It's telling you that this is good for you, this is not good for you. Like I said, I went to classes that were not meant to be for me, just so that I knew whether I was in the right place or not. But something I wanted to highlight in terms of assignments, if some of you have been following me on LinkedIn, you'll have seen something I wrote a few months ago. And basically, as an employer, we are interviewing entry-level candidates often. And we do find a lot of people who don't have any work experience, not even from a club perspective or from a, even helping out in a family shop or something like that. So the only way of finding out what this person can actually truly offer is actually looking at their assignments. And so when you're doing an assignment, if you're in university, don't do it for the sake of the qualification. Do it because you want to learn more. So it goes back to what Jackie was saying. Go and do more, and find opportunities to test yourself. Competitions. So I took part in a bunch of engineering related competitions and management competitions as well. And that was an opportunity for me to practice what I was learning in theory. So again, grabbing opportunity and using that to test yourself. That was something that I really enjoyed doing. And then of course the part of life that's not academic, not professional, being human, meeting people, seeing the world, being curious about stuff. And at the bottom of it, everything is about getting exposure, getting more and more into the world, finding out what's out there. And the bottom line of all of that is to try and explain that you're gaining transferable skills from all these things. So you're getting the ability to build relationships, the analytical reasoning, communication, problem solving. All of these things are useful in whatever career you end up in, whether you're running a shop, or whether you're in the corporate world, whether you are in healthcare, whatever it is, all of these transferable skills apply there. And so what I wanted to really show was that my journey and my desire to go looking for all these things gave me a whole bunch of transferable skills. Yeah, can you get a next slide, please? So I just wanted to quickly highlight that when I was making my career choice, in the end, I drilled down to 3 options. One was the engineering, the other was architecture, and one was psychology. And none of these are connected as far as I can see. If I then go further into my career, I found opportunities where these things are actually connected. So the next slide will show you that between manufacturing, engineering, and management, and psychology, there is requirements around leadership, business coaching, and self-development. And so I ended up finding a path to psychology by becoming a life coach. And my interest in architecture never went away. So the Tensile architecture course is giving me the opportunity to explore product design. And I'm connecting architecture and psychology by looking at healthy environments, safe living spaces. So again, what I'm trying to highlight here is careers are interrelated. So things are evolving. We're not stuck in the traditional sense anymore. The structures that used to be are breaking down. So like I said, the emerging careers are no longer defined. The morning session, there was a discussion around qualifications and skills, and I really believe that skills and experience are more useful than qualifications. And then I've got some questions here, and maybe Jackie will be interested to hear this one as well. Is a role in HR more appropriate for someone who's got experience in customer service? Someone in marketing, would they be better off with a psychology degree and an understanding of human behavior? Maybe the auditors who might be in the audience, what happens when your financial audit process is automated. What are you guys going to do? And so I think the skills that are going to be in demand are the ones that are going to imagine the problems of the future, and the skills that are going to solve problems that don't exist yet. And the only way that we're going to acquire these skills is through self-curiosity and exposure to everything that the world has to offer. So those are my kind of opening remarks. I'll give it back to Esther.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Asim. And you've just ushered us into a set of questions that I think the panelists will be handling. Thank you, we appreciate that. Just to remind our participants, keep asking the questions on the chat. We're going to pick them and post them to the panelists, and so that we can have an engaging conversation. So maybe we could begin with something that Jackie said, and I think I've heard Susan as well repeating the same. So you talked about having a dream, owning your career, and then drawing a life plan for yourself. But I'm just thinking, you're just leaving college, you're not even sure what your dream is career-wise, you know? You just got into this, maybe into this course because that is what your parents asked you to get into, or that was what was available because of your grades. Where do you start? Just imagining you're fresh from campus, where do you start? So I said, you talked about having a dream, you know, owning your career and then drawing a life plan around it. But you've just left college, you're not even sure what your dream is. You got into this course because, I mean, that's what the grades, you know, the grade that you got in high school allowed you to pursue. So where do you start even with this dreaming before you even own this career and draw a life plan around it?
I'll tell you, a dream is not based on a career. Your life choices, who you want to be in life, is not based on your career, right? So the first place to start is ask yourself, picture yourself at what you call optimum. What does that picture look like? Okay, are you sitting somewhere smelling the smell of cows? Where are those cows? What does it take to own a cow in this town? I see Masai with cows everywhere blocking us on the road. Really? You know, what does that look like? And then ask yourself, how do people get there? I mean, there are 3 ways: inheritance, theft, or just working for it, you know? So let's choose the working for it part, right? And that's when you ask yourself, who has this? Don't ask when they got it. And that's one of the traps that we get into. That success is defined by age. That I cannot be successful. I cannot, you know, based on your success, I cannot own a home in an affluent part of town until I'm 40, 50. I can if I want it. So have that dream first of all. Forget your career. I mean, you guys, I came from psychology to HR. I had to volunteer for 9 months without pay just to prove myself. Something else that the youth of these days don't want. They want money. It's okay, you do you, but please be ready to grind for free for some time, right? So have that dream, but your dream is defined as, where do you see yourself? Do you see kids running around? If you don't, well and good. Tomorrow your dream could change, so what? Yeah, so build that dream, build that picture, and I like visualization. Visualize it. And then ask yourself, what does it mean to get here? And that's when you find yourself going for a career, you find yourself doing some jobs on the side, you find yourself volunteering, but you're going to align yourself. You're going to align yourself with people who will help you get there. That's how you find people saying stars fall into place. Yeah, so by your dream, kindly, it's not about career, it's about a bigger picture.
Great. Susan?
So I love what Jackie says, and it also brings to mind the fact that the question has changed. It's no longer what do you want to be when you grow up, rather it should be what problems do you want to solve. Because when you remove the focus from to be, which is a job or a career that is defined in some fixed box, then you limit yourself. The question then should be, what problems do you want to solve? Because people who actually make money are solving problems. It's never about the job that they're in. It's always a question of what problems are they solving. So I'd say, for starters, ask yourself, what problems do I actually want to solve? And many times these answers are already with us. We just ignore them because they are so us. We don't think that there's anything unique about it. But the truth is, everyone in this room today, and anyone who's listening to us online, there are no two people who are the same. Even twins are very different. We are made happy by different things. So when you think about what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what makes you feel such a deep sense of injustice that you want to solve that problem, those are some of the clues that you can actually use to determine what career you should pursue later in life, or at least what problems you can solve, and then find the interconnectivity. So I like Asim's story because it's true, things are interrelated. We just have a hard time seeing those connections because we think in a box. So throw away the box, think problems you want to solve, think about the things which make you happy, think about the things which make you sad, think about the things the injustices that really, really rile you up. I can bet that no two people will have the exact same things that make them happy, sad, or feel a sense of injustice. And even when you do, how they find expression is completely different. Because one person might find expression through their art because they're gifted art-wise. Somebody else might find the same expression for the same problem through writing because writing is their strength. So for anyone who's just wondering, okay, so where do I start? Think about what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what injustices do really annoy you and you can't help yourself, you want to fix it. And then ask yourself what problems you want to solve in the world. Because as Jackie told us, this generation is very different from all the previous generations. Think about the problems you want to solve. And as you think about those problems, that path will begin to emerge. And don't overthink it. You already have the answers. It's not something that's out there. It's deep within you. Spend some time reflecting.
Great. I like that. Okay, let's come to you, Asim. One of the biggest things that many young people complain about is every time they're applying for a job, we want people with 3 to 5 years experience. I'm just fresh from school. I don't have experience. What are some ways that young people can start cultivating to gain this experience so that by the time they get to the job market, it's, they have something. It's not just the book knowledge.
I think we expect work experience to be in a professional environment. And if we sort of think outside the box and we can say, okay, being part of a club or being part of a club in high school, university, there are opportunities in that space to practice, your finance, your leadership, your communication. And I think it's about expressing the experience you've gained from having gone into that space of being in a club. It's also a lot of our, especially in Kenya, a lot of our parents have a small business or something like that. Even helping out the parents in stapling something or shredding paper or moving a file from here to there. There's something that you're going to pick up because you're touching these things. You're picking up from observation that this file belongs here. Why does it belong here? Why is it organized in this way? So all of that is work experience. We have to recognize that is actually work experience, and it can be sold as work experience. So we're not asking for 3 to 5 years of professional experience. We're asking for tangible experience that can be transferred or used in a work environment. I think, yeah.
Wow, that just makes me think then that often we have this experience, we just don't know to document it. I'm sure every young person has that experience, either, let's assume your parent was having a construction somewhere, you were either in charge of paying some workers, you gained something from there. We all have this experience, probably we just don't know how to package it in our CVs. So it always comes across like we have no experience. So sticking with you, Asim, I read somewhere that growing up as a boy, you never knew that computer games were playing a role in sharpening your critical skills. And these critical skills have now become very key for you in a managerial job. Like, who would think computer games? Maybe even as a parent, they would think that's just a kid having fun, wasting time. So I think, how can the youth borrow from such experience to learn in unconventional ways beyond the classroom, based on your experience?
Yeah, I found myself playing a lot of simulation games, and the specific one that was my favorite was a football manager game. And I love the way the game had been built, because everything was about numbers and statistics, and you could manipulate the game based on how you understood the variables. So of course, I had my many battles with my mom, especially about where I was wasting my time playing video games as opposed to doing something more constructive. I guess the analytical ability, whether it was a simulated game or whether it was something like something more involving like FIFA on PlayStation or something, it's always about becoming aware of what information is coming into you. So when you're using your hands to trigger something and do an action on the video game, your mind is processing 1,000 things at the same time to figure out why you're doing that and what your outcome or your expected outcome is going to be. The more you do that, the more you build up knowledge of how to win. So it's about acquiring information in a consistent way so that you can become an expert in this specific game or area, and then use that to your advantage. And beyond that, for me, it was also about understanding, okay, this is how, if games are built like this, it means that software is also going to be built like this. And so a complicated game versus a software that doesn't come across complicated gave me the confidence that actually one day, if I want to build a software, then having understood the game, I can build the software.
Nice. Good to hear that. Susan, when you look at today, for sure, there's so many learning opportunities, even online, sometimes even freely on YouTube. How can young people take advantage of these?
So for starters, I always say the first step is knowing where you can actually get help and trying to avoid the rabbit hole that is Google. So often, sometimes asking people who've been down the path you want to follow and asking for recommendations is a good place to start, so that you avoid the Google trap of too much information and not necessarily knowing where to actually drill down. And then secondly, exploring the commonly known places online where people can learn. So yes, YouTube is one of them. It's a big place where people can learn. Skillshare is another platform that allows people to learn. Udemy, edX, FutureLearn, those are all platforms that have even partnered with some of the best universities and schools across the globe to allow people to learn at their own pace, or with a cohort of people from completely different walks of life that would even broaden their experience and their perspective. So get recommendations, Google as well, but then also think about the platforms that we are already aware of. So Skillshare, edX, FutureLearn, Coursera, those are all platforms that allow us to learn. And they allow us to learn literally anything and everything.
Okay. Thank you. Jackie, I think one of the quickest realizations you get when you get into employment is that you quickly realize that your employer will not provide the training opportunities that you had in mind to grow and develop your career. I think it's like a reality check that hits you, and so that means you must be willing to invest in your career. And invest means it's going to cost you something, time, money, whatever, but it's going to cost you something. How can you encourage the youth to, you know, to do this? Because sometimes it's the cost that makes you, you know, go with the flow rather than really invest in your own career. And sometimes you're seated there waiting for your employer to give you training opportunities, and 10 years go by, 20, none.
Yeah, I like something that Sims said earlier. And I think, especially if you're in, I think, American institutions, they're very good at allowing people to go out and learn more, right? Go into classes that don't belong to you. See, one of the things that we need to demystify is that learning and education can only be done in a class setting and must be paid. Demystify education. What you want is knowledge. Let's start there. So get to identify what's my knowledge gap. How can I get it more efficiently and in a very effective way in terms of financials, all right? So get the people who you're going to hang around with, get clubs, all right? I mean, I was seeing something like Toastmasters. When it started, we were very tiny and small, and right now it's become a huge thing. I don't even think it's Toastmasters anymore. I don't know what that is, but it's amazing. It's a free platform. So rather than pushing an employer to spend so much money on you, to take you to school, to learn things you might actually never use, how about we start by partnering with people who will give us this information? Platforms like what Elle is doing now. This is something you'll probably not hear in a classroom setting. They will take you much further than the CPA lessons you're getting tonight with CASNET. No offense to CASNET, but you get what I'm saying. So let's redefine this education that you're looking for. Let's stop getting so clogged up to academia. That's not to say academia is not important. It has its role. When you do your life plan, one of the things you're going to be very clear about is the people who are earning or doing the changes, the life changes they were making. What did they know? How did they know it? At 23, do I need a PhD? I mean, I see all sorts of requests as HR, you know, and I'm like, you've come in, maybe you're a waiter, you want to do a master's. In what? Waitressing? What knowledge do I need to get me to the next step? Yeah. As a waiter, what can I combine? Accounts. Let me do some CPAs. Let me become a night auditor. Bingo. I don't need a degree. Let's have that dream. And you know, someone has chatted me, and I'm really happy about that, because they're asking, if your dream keeps changing over and over, doesn't that cause confusion? And I'm like, you know what, guys, stick to the bigger picture. Okay, and you'll have more clarity in the path. So once you have your dream, I want to be a millionaire at 40. Why? I don't know. It's up to you. The dream should not be the financials. It's the impact I want to have. How do I make that impact? You'll find yourself looking more for knowledge than academia. And at the time you're ready for the academia, you will have the resources for that.
Susan, if you could take that.
So for sure, focusing is everything, because again, why do you want to do what you want to do? How do you actually want to go about doing it? And just to build on to what something which Jackie has said, the dream can keep changing, and that's okay. The dream can keep changing, but there are some things that will always remain the same. And at the core of the things which remain the same, that becomes your anchor. So I call those connecting lines. They're just those things that no matter what, no matter where, you tend to gravitate around them. So find those connecting lines and let those be your anchor, so that from there you're able to make those decisions that make sense for you. And it's also a question of defining for yourself what progress means, what success means, and not looking at what everyone else is saying. So when you're very clear about your anchor, your connection, that thing that holds you steady, then these other decisions become much easier to make, because they are based on you, not what society says, not what you think is right, and not necessarily what you're seeing other people doing, because your journey is never going to be the same. We might all get there at different times, and that's okay.
All right. please let me remind the participants, you're free to ask questions, post them in the chat box, and we're going to take them and post them to our panelists. Susan, I want to stay with you and hear about, you said that there are some mistakes that you learned that you made in your career, and actually the programs you design, somehow, they've been informed by those mistakes because you'd want to help other people not to make the same mistakes. Maybe you can talk to us about that. What were these mistakes?
So one of the biggest mistakes was a wish without a plan. So remember, I said I wanted to be in HR, and yay, that's great. So I want to be in HR, or you want to be an accountant, or you want to do what Esther does, or what Asim does, or what Jackie does, or what somebody you've looked up to does. And I did the same thing. So I wanted to be in HR, but I didn't have a plan. I thought it would happen by chance. I thought I'd work really hard and people would see what I was doing and they'd say, hey, Susan, come, let's give you this opportunity. But the truth is, opportunities are created. Sometimes and many times, no one is going to hand that opportunity to you. So having a plan towards what it is you want. So I finally figured it out, but a couple of years late, which was understanding where I was. So I had just started out. I did not have any training whatsoever towards HR. Later, I realized what I should have done is actually sat down with someone in HR, done an informational interview with someone in HR and asked them, hey, what does it take to be in HR? What skills do I need to actually work towards so that I can actually have a position or a role in HR? And then from there, look at where I was and work backwards and figure, did I need to go back to school? Because sometimes, and I see this often, people think they need the MBA, but what they actually need is practical experience. And that practical experience doesn't have to be in an official setup. I mean, if your friend has a business, they are able to give you experience, then that's what you need rather than going to class to add yet another paper. So I would have figured out then what skills I needed, what knowledge I needed, and what competencies I needed. And then from there, I would have been able to work back and see, okay, my journey between here and there involves the following steps. It involves going back to school if that was relevant, getting this skill, which I can get in by volunteering or by doing something that was already where I was in the department I was. And then third, getting a mentor, somebody who could hold my hand and help me chart out that path from sales to HR. So that's one of the biggest mistakes for me, which I made. It was having a wish and having a dream, but not having a plan, because then there was no way for me to actualize it in the real world. Because the truth is, we need to make it make sense for the real world, for where we are. And I'd say, looking back now, it would have been a shorter journey. And I even looked at my friends who would leave the organization and come back, having acquired the skills they needed to come in at a higher role. So little old me was hoping then that somebody would see my hard work, and believe you me, I worked hard. They'd see my hard work, and from my hard work, then they'd give me an opportunity, but I needed to create those opportunities. So for somebody who's here today, I'd say create opportunities where you can, when you can, however you can, and two, have a plan. Have a dream, but have a plan. Work it out, get it down in detail. This is what I'll be doing this week. This is what I'll be doing this month. This is what I must do every single day if I want to actually get there.
Wow. You said something that resonated, that just got me thinking. And I don't know about men, but I know for many of us as women, we work hard and then we don't. We hope somebody in the organization will notice. Hardly will you even ask for that opportunity to be promoted, because you're hoping, well, my boss is seeing that I'm working hard, so definitely I'll be promoted. And then when it comes to promotion and somebody else gets the opportunity, we sulk, because we feel like we have been overlooked, but we really didn't even articulate it. So I liked what you talked about, and having that plan so that it stops being just a wish in your mind and it moves to being a plan. The three of you keep talking about mentors, coaches, and I think Jackie talked about somebody who will promote you. What's the difference, and how do these three help in one's career development. Jackie, if we could take that. The difference between mentors, coaches, spokesperson.
First of all, are you seeing my plate?
You're having lunch right now?
I'm at Hemingway's. I'm at Hemingway's.
Nice.
So if you can pick anybody here, one of the young people who would like a lunch with me, I'm open to buying one for you, and you can ask all the questions for free. Now,
Wow, was that a lunch at Hemingway's you just offered?
yes,
Yeah, it is.
just thrown that out to any young
Give you.
person who feels, I'm dying, I have all these questions in my head. Come on, let's have this conversation. Now, mentor, coach, and I know I call them cheerleaders, but a spokesperson, somebody who speaks on your behalf. Now, I'll start with a coach. A coach is technical, all right? So a coach is somebody whom, for example, you come in and say, no, Jackie, I don't know how to do strategic management or strategic planning. How do I do it? A coach was, a coach is technical in terms of this is how you do it. I don't know how to go through my life. How do I do it? A coach is technical. A coach is, this is how you move from step A to step D. These are the steps. This is how you get to know yourself. This is how you succeed. Okay? A mentor goes to a bigger picture. A mentor is more, who are you in your personality? How are you fitting in your picture? Okay? How is your family fitting in? How is your career fitting in? How are you feeling today? Are you actually being able to achieve what you're supposed to achieve? Okay? And so mentors oftentimes do a very good job in coaching. Okay, they sort of double up, but they do a very good job in coaching. A mentor has walked the journey. A coach knows the journey. All right. Now, I'm in mental health. Okay. I would see a patient perhaps with bipolar, schizophrenia. Have I had it? No. But do I know the journey? Am I able to walk the journey with you? Yes, I am. That makes me a coach. A mentor, I have been a director level. I have been an entrepreneur. Have I walked the journey? Yes. Can I walk the journey with you? Yes, through my experience. That's really the main difference. Now, a spokesperson is somebody who understands your dreams, but has an ability to have a voice on your behalf. What does that mean? For example, you want to be in human resource. You want a career in HR. Your spokesperson needs to be somebody who has an authority in that industry that they can speak on your behalf and open doors for you, right? You want to be an architect. I can't be your spokesperson. But am I at KEPSA? Am I sitting on boards? Do I have a board somewhere where there's architectural stuff going on? Then maybe I can be a spokesperson only to that level. So your best spokesperson is mostly somebody in the industry and the environment that you're trying to get yourself into. If you're trying to get yourself into government, it's best somebody who is already in government. But you cannot come get a spokesperson who does not interact or is not an authority in that environment. So a spokesperson is very specific to where you're heading, and they do not necessarily guide you. They just know you, they understand you, they own your dream for you, and they open those doors for you. That's what they do, right? So that really is the difference between, from where I'm sitting, coaches, mentors, and what we call the spokespeople. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm normally very short and to the point, so.
No, that's fine. Perfectly okay. Before we come to Asim, I think Susan, being a career coach, you could jump in on that and just tell us even some of what you do as a coach. We know we're trying to understand what's the difference, mentors, coaches, cheerleaders. Yeah, and you're a coach yourself.
So one of the biggest, I guess misconceptions or challenges that people have around the two is that a coach will never tell you what to do. They help you unlock the answers that are already in you by using a thought-provoking process. And often that is just asking you questions, because a lot of the answers, you have them. You just need somebody to ask the right questions in the right way for you to be able to uncover whatever answers you already have within you. And that differs significantly from a mentor, because ideally a mentor would have walked the path before you and they'd be able to tell you, you know, here, I think you're making a mistake and you need to course correct, or I recommend you do the following things. So when it comes to coaching, it's bringing out your potential, asking you questions and provoking just that thought process for you to move from point A to point B. Mentorship, somebody who's walked the same path as you and is able to help you avoid some of the same mistakes which they made, or avoid some of the traps which they made. So that's usually one of the biggest differences between a coach and a mentor. A coach doesn't necessarily have to have walked your path, and they would be able to still help you.
Great. Asim, you're a life coach. So does that mean that you coach generally about everything in life, or are you specific on career? How exactly do you do this?
I guess I started out by doing what Susan just talked about, which is asking questions. And I've got clients who are kind of all over the place in the sense that I've got mental health related clients, I've got leadership clients, I've got a business related client now. I'd say that in my experience so far, what I found is that all of these things come back to your personal situations, or your goals in life, your dream, your values and stuff like that. So what happens is, even though we're talking about, leadership or business, I will always first start by exploring who am I, or who are you, so that then we can align with your purpose or your business, or whatever it is that the challenge you were facing initially was. So yeah, I started off all encompassing, but I think as I go through my life coaching career, I will start focusing on leadership and business related spaces more than I will on mental health.
Okay, thank you for that. I think still staying on with you, I found, when you sent your bio and I was reading through, I found it very authentic how you openly said, I'm recovering from a nervous breakdown and PTSD since 2012. And yet, when I look at your bio, you have so many achievements that probably a young person is looking at and thinking, wow. How have you been able to maneuver through that? Because often, at one point or another, I feel like we suffer from mental health, but we either are not open or truthful about it. We don't share it publicly. So maybe just a few people in our circles will know, or none. And sometimes it also hinders us from even progressing. So how are you maneuvering you're a director in a company, you're studying for your master's, and still you're taking care of yourself, even though you're recovering from that nervous breakdown?
To be honest, I didn't know that it was such a problem to not talk about it until I started talking about it. So I guess I was in a state where I was in intense therapy for so many years, and it just kind of became my way of life. I went through this process where I had dreams, and having gone through the mental health journey, realizing that those dreams were not really possible given where I'd reached. So I had to kind of create new dreams. Yeah, we have this issue about not talking about it, and I think talking about it is the beginning of figuring yourself out. And I think I've talked about identifying yourself a couple of times already, and I think the the journey that I went through was a kind of a redirection in realizing that the path that I was on was not the right one. And the nervous breakdown was actually a gift in the sense that I was like, okay, the body just decided this is not where you're meant to be going, change direction. And I think that for me it was a sign, and I think that's the advice that I would give. You know, people who are going through a mental health challenge, it's your body trying to tell you that maybe you're not on the right path, and maybe you need to reach out for a mentor, for a coach, you know, somebody that you trust, that you can say, something's not right, I need help. I mean, it wasn't the easiest thing to ask for help. I didn't know what was going on with myself at the time. But I think having been through that entire journey and seeing that other people are going through similar things, and it's really about, if I say I went through it, then someone else might say, okay, I'm also going through it. So it's about creating that relatability so that it encourages people to talk about it.
Yeah, that's true. I find that as more people are talking about it, more people are willing now to come, to come up and say, actually, I've gone through a journey like this. So it demystifies mental health in general. Okay, thank you so much to our participants. I can see a couple of questions on the chat, and I'm just going to pose them even as they're directed to specific panelists. So Susan, there's one for you where somebody asks, how do you realize that this is really your area of interest?
And that's a good one, because many times we run away from our areas of interest because we think they should be more deep or they should be more out there. So growing up, I was the person who thought out loud, meaning I'd not take time to pause and think. I was the let's do it kind of person. Now, I used to listen to the deeper thinkers and the people who tend to internalize before they speak. And I'd always say, I wish I spoke less. I wish I was like them. And I wish I could be deep. And I say deep in quotes because simply because you don't talk and you think faster doesn't necessarily mean you're deeper than the other person. And I think the first thing that would help you understand your area of interest is just you and who you are. Because there are those things that you will generally tend to gravitate towards. And I'd given this example earlier. So what are some of the things that make you happy? Are you happiest when you're creating? Are you happiest when you're speaking? Are you happiest when you're like a sim, playing computer games and just putting things together? So what are the things that you're happiest doing? That's an indicator to your interest. And then when you think about the world around you, what are the things that actually disturb you? Or the things that make you angry? Because again, that shows you some area in which you might have an interest. And then the other one is, and I like to ask this question, if I woke you up at 2 a.m. in the morning and asked for your help with something, what would that thing be? Chances are you're so good at it, you spend so much time on it, you don't actually have to think about it, and you can actually pretty do it without thinking. That's an indicator into your area of interest. And then the last one is, what do people compliment you on? And this is a terrible habit we have because we think it's about modesty, where you have someone say, oh, wow, that was an amazing presentation. And you say, oh, I've been practicing for the last 3 weeks. Or somebody says, you put such a comprehensive proposal together. And you go, yeah, well, I had a template. So you minimize what you actually do very well and what people compliment you on because you think it's modest, but then you're missing a big key to an area of interest for you, because people compliment you means you do it well, means really it's something which is of interest to you and you can actually do better. And the last thing I'd say is think about the things that you would rather be doing on any given day. If I give you a choice, what is that thing which you'd be doing? Whatever you thought about just now, that's the thing that you're interested in, because where your interests lie, you're always willing to dedicate resources, whether they be money or time, towards pursuing. Those are my thoughts on that question, Esther.
Wow, great. let's stick with you still, Susan. I want to tie this up with a question somebody has asked. So you've been in this career for years, and you've done everything you know on how to get to the next level in terms of promotion, probably even applied for jobs elsewhere. Nothing is forthcoming, and you're feeling stuck. So now it's just turned to be, well, I'm doing this job because I need to pay the bills. What practical steps can I start taking to get unstuck and just develop my career?
So whoever asked that question has accurately described a portion of my own career. I had applied for jobs outside. I was not getting jobs outside. I had tried to move internally. Remember, HR was my thing. So I had tried to move internally into HR, was not happening. I trained my future boss because they hired from outside and brought somebody in to come and take the job that I had applied for and I wanted and I could do. And I was told, hey, here's your boss, train your boss. So I also trained my boss and nothing was forthcoming. Practical things you can do. One, create your own opportunities. Now, I'm a huge fan of saying create your own opportunities because it's worked for me time and time again, because I was stuck for 6 good years. Same grade, no movement up, no movement to the side, just there doing the same old thing. And one of the things that was very depressing then was that I could do my job with my eyes closed. I didn't have to think. So it was mind-numbingly boring to come to work. I dreaded Monday mornings because here we go again, we'll rinse and repeat. And I didn't feel like I was utilizing my potential. I didn't feel like I was being the best that I could be. So I identified an area in our department that had been neglected. And once I figured out what I wanted to do with it, I went and told my boss, hey, over and above my responsibilities, can I take on this project? Because I need something else to do that's just not what I do on a day-to-day basis. And because it had been ignored, nobody cared about it, we were always being told we should do something about it, my boss said, hey, go for it. Knock yourself out, just know you're on your own. And it means your normal job cannot be affected. So I created my own opportunity. I created an additional job for myself within my normal job. And that for me was a stepping stone because it exposed me to a completely different department, a completely different group of people. It broadened my network, and any moves I made in the future, I can link back to that opportunity I created for myself. So practical tip number 1, create that opportunity for yourself. Practical tip number 2, find the things that bring you joy and find ways to do those things. Now, training is one of the things that I'm very interested in and had always been interested in. And until I finally found my way on attachment to HR, I didn't realize that within HR, that was actually my space. So once I discovered training is my thing, I always found opportunities to train, meaning I'd say, I think I can train these people. Do you need somebody to actually go and deliver something? I'm going to do it. So volunteer for things that you are interested in and find ways to do things that bring you joy, because then you're able to counteract the balance of you being in a job that you absolutely wish you weren't in and you doing something that actually makes you happy. And then the last thing I'd say is volunteer. If there's a project that's happening, say, put your hand up, say, that's me, I'm going to do that. If there is somebody asking for something you've never done before and you really want to just change the scenery, go and do that thing. And because the more you are out there, the more you're pushing yourself beyond your limits, the more you're broadening your skills and your experiences, the more it's giving you a leg up in terms of the knowledge, skills, and competencies you're building. And the more it also exposes you to other parts of your business, other parts and other people within your organization who would then help you be able to move to the next step. So be very creative is really what I'm saying in Assam. So be very creative, create your opportunities, volunteer where possible, and do the things which make you happy. It makes a world of difference.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that. I see there's another question. I think this one is directed to Asim, where somebody says, I like the advice. Awesome to hear football manager is being featured here. So anyway, to the question, what advice does the team have on dealing with the market or people who may not appreciate the changing dynamics? For example, some skills take time to show up in mainstream markets, and this person gave an example, digital influencers. They are now just becoming acceptable, or accepted by corporates. So I think as a youth, how do you maneuver around that? Because some of these skills take time, and some people they take time, or even you're in an environment where the organization does not appreciate the changing dynamics.
I think it's important to understand the other side of the table. So if you take a corporate as an example, the management or the directors have a responsibility to deliver to shareholders, and so everything that's happening is about are we creating value or not? And so these things, when it's something new, it takes a while for people to understand whether this is going to create value for shareholders or not. When you pitch an idea, you've got to figure out whether there's a value addition happening or not. So I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. New ideas are going to take a while to kind of anchor themselves. Not everyone in management, or not everyone on a board of directors is a risk taker or a high risk taker, especially when the stakes are high. So you've got to appreciate that things that are happening on the ground are not entirely visible to the people who sit at the top, and they're trying to protect the wealth that they've created or the value that they've created. So I think when you try and pitch one of these ideas, you've got to consider that there's a value addition, that aspect that has to be included.
I feel like I relate to it because having been in a print magazine for years, I remember we were the team that really pushed for the magazine to go digital. But at the time, the organization just wondered, digital, how? How do we even make money there? And honestly, it took COVID to push them to go digital. Well, by then I had already left. So sometimes, your ideas will not be accepted in the organization because, of course, they were looking at the picture where we have shareholders, we have an investment here, we need to protect it. So when you're on the other side, you're not management, you don't understand. It just feels like your ideas are being rejected. But you're young, you have energy. That time we're just feeling digital is the way to go. But the management wasn't feeling otherwise. But COVID forced them to move into digital. So I partly understand, the sentiments that you're sharing. There's a question here which I want to pose to Jackie. How does one go about switching from one career to another? And I guess you're a great example of that. So,
yeah. Well, I think what's important, and I'll answer it as I respond to the one just before that, getting unstuck. Because that has been asked, and I think that's something that's really on a lot of people. They keep saying, I'm stuck, I'm stuck, I'm stuck. One of the things is that, again, when you look at a career, you need to ask yourself, what gap am I feeling? And Susan has sung this song from when we started this talk. What gap are you feeling? What's the solution? What's the problem that you bring a solution to? Now, for example, I've been let's say administrator for so long, and I'm like, I feel stuck. What would unstick you is to ask yourself, what other opening can I feel? For example, I've seen a lot of people growing simply because they have taught themselves a lot of Excel. And they start saying, you know what, I can do that quickly. I can, and be available. Talk about it. Say, I see you guys doing reports for so long, and put in the hours. Can I do this report for you at night and make it beautiful? Because there's something artistic in you. People will start seeing something else in you. Okay, I remember when I changed from mental health to HR, in terms of career, one of the things that got me through was because I was very good with regurgitating what people are saying into points. So I was very good with minutes, and that's what I was thrown into strategy. And people would come and say, this is what I want to do. And from that, I could break it down into reality, hogwash, madness, and just my mind works in a very logical way. And that's one thing that I picked, and people were able to come out and say, okay, come from what you're doing and sit at our feet and help us make logic of what we are saying. There's something you have that fills a gap. Find it. Open your ears, open your eyes, listen out there. Okay, board meetings are taking place. Your supervisor keeps talking and saying, why am I not being able to make this reconciliation? You may not have accounts, but you have an eye for detail. Ask him, can I take a look at it? Can I try? That's how you're going to be able to actually get unstuck. And moving from one career to another, you need to ask yourself, again, what gap am I feeling and where am I moving? I moved from psychology to HR because I felt HR had failed in preparing people for eventualities in their career. HR had failed by making people feel like careers was their lives, and I needed to change that communication. That thinking needed to change. When you're changing, when you're thinking you want to change a career from another, what's your drive? Is it money? Do you think engineers earn a lot more? You'll change to engineering, and then you'll be going there making photocopies for the engineers who are making the money. I mean, what really is driving you to make this change? Again, if you're not making a difference where you're heading, rethink it. Rethink why you want to switch from one career to the other. Once you find that gap, shout about it at the top of the mountains. Keep trying, keep doing it, fail, get up again. Sometimes one of the places I'm supporting is actually the hotels. And someone asked, I've been here for a very long time, Jackie, I'm not growing. I'm like, but do we know you? Do we know you? And the GM passes by, say hi. Be that know-it-all who's always saying hi to everybody. Say hi. The moment an opportunity comes and your name comes up, we say, oh yeah, I think I know her. Is that, you're like, that looks like a good person. Give her. If you're sitting there being modest, like Susan was saying, you're heading nowhere. Right? So find out, why do I want to make this change? Find that gap you're feeling. Be good at it, make yourself known, stand on top of the mountains, let us see you.
True. That is so true. I feel like in many ways you're saying make yourself unforgettable. And sometimes the opportunities to make yourself unforgettable are free, but we don't take advantage. Like sometimes people will say, introduce yourself in the chat box, and people will just be in a forum like this and nobody will take that chance to introduce themselves. So sometimes the opportunities are just free there on your face, but we don't recognize them. All right, at this point, I just want to remind the participants, there's a feedback form in the chat. Please, we would like you to fill it. We want to hear your feedback about the session so that we know how to organize other events that are relevant for you. So take your time and just click on the link and share your feedback. There are several questions still on the chat box. This one is for Asim, where somebody asks, where is that? With the influence of AI, how can one boost their career in technology?
I think AI is a very, very interesting space, and it's gonna grow in all directions. So I would start by understanding what AI is, and then borrowing from what Susan and Jackie have just spoken about. There's gaps. So what are the gaps that you want to fill, and what skills do you need to close those gaps? Obviously, programming is going to become one aspect. I think the other aspects like psychology. So how is human behavior going to change as AI comes in? Is there a technological gap there? Are we aware of how let's say our parents or our grandparents are going to handle AI taking over our lives? Is there a gap there? So technology and programming is one aspect. I think AI is going to touch our lives in so many different ways. I mean, you can go up, down, left, right. There's so much going on. There's so much going on there. So it's about understanding the basics of AI and then figuring out where it's going to explode.
Okay, so that just means staying curious, which is yet another question that somebody has posed to you. How do you remain curious and interested?
Yeah, that's a question from Angela, who always asks me that question. I wonder. I don't know. Maybe this is a question that I would discuss with Jackie later on. But is curiosity something that we're born with, or can we train it into ourselves? The first thing that came to my mind when that question popped up was, if I touch a pen, am I touching it because I want to use it, or am I touching it because I want to know how it was made? And it's that's where I'm stuck. I don't know if it's something you're born with. I've had I guess it's a privilege in some sense, because I've just been curious all my life. So everything I look at and touch and whatever, I want to know more about it. But if we are so engrossed on the screen in front of us, or the phone that we're typing away on, we're not looking left and right and seeing what else is happening in our world. I think we have to become more aware of who we are as a human race and what we need into the next 5-10 years and stuff like that, so that we're actively thinking about what problems we're going to need to solve in the next 5-10 years. So I don't particularly have an answer, and Angela, you owe me a coffee for asking that question.
Jackie, do you want to tell us? Are we born curious? Is curiosity something is it a skill we nurture? How do we do this?
Unfortunately, my answer will be a bit medical, which is I'm trying to avoid. One of the early childhood developments that we look into in children is curiosity. When your child is about 3 months, you expect them to start, looking around, being curious, and the lights go on, the lights go off. And when that does not happen, then we tend to come in. So we need to be really clear what you mean by curiosity. And I'll tell you, in my opinion, this is not a medical opinion, it's just an opinion. Curiosity comes the more you know. Okay? Now, I cannot be curious about a car if I've never seen or heard of one. You will not be more curious if you don't go out there and look for information, expose yourself to information. Okay? To some extent, lack of curiosity could be looked at as laziness. Sitting there, you want to grow your career, but you're not curious what opportunities are out there. But you really, really want to be rich. Really? Yeah, so it's an inner drive, okay? So I think a lot of research can be done around this, but I want to also separate between curiosity and interest. Interest is an emotion. It's not a skill. You're either interested or you're not. You feel interested today, tomorrow you don't feel interested. At night you're happy. Those people who say like they are nocturnal, they're interested at night. In the morning they're not interested. It's an emotion. And whenever it's an emotion, oftentimes you can build it into a decision. That's the beauty of emotions. It takes a lot, but you can build them into decisions. You can wake up and decide, I choose to be interested in my life today. What does it take for me to be interested? These are the activities. I start with jogging. Bring up my pheromones. I can choose to make decisions to be interested. Curiosity starts with what you already know. So if you find yourself not curious about anything, chances are you're asking about curiosity about different subjects. If you really search yourself, there's something you're curious about. Boys sit and, sometimes women ask men, what are you thinking of? And the thing about this goal and how that goal just did not go through, there's something that you're interested in, just maybe not what is being brought to your forefront, and maybe not what you're thinking would naturally be of curiosity to you. And goes back to what Susan was saying, what is this thing that you can naturally do? So never tell yourself, I'm not a curious person. It's just that you're not curious about the things that are obvious to everybody else. Find out what you're curious about. Break into that thing. Interest, build it. It's a behavior.
Wow, great response right there. Thank you. I want to move on to another question. I think this one is just to the ones practicing HR or have practiced HR at one point or another. So somebody says, a lot of youth still rely on formal employment, at least even to just get you started. You may not necessarily just leave school and jump into entrepreneurship. But, you keep sending CVs, there is no feedback. How does one navigate this lack of feedback in CVs? And yet it's difficult to learn without feedback. You don't know if whatever how you're applying is the problem. Is it your CV? How is it structured? How do you know? And you're not getting feedback. Susan, you want to take that?
So there's been a very interesting debate that's been going on online, I think on LinkedIn, which I saw, whether should recruiters give you feedback or not? And can they give everyone feedback or not? And I know Jackie will have a lot to say about this one because it is something that comes across her table every single day. And we're definitely never going to solve it in such a discussion. It's one of those ones that's a very long one. We'll never get to solve it. But for someone who's wondering, so how do you deal with the lack of feedback? Have somebody actually evaluate you in a practice session. If you want something practical, have someone evaluate you, because many times we go into interviews when we are not prepared. And your lack of preparedness, and anyone who sat in an interview on the other side of the interviewer will tell you, preparation is half the game. So if you are asked a question, and I'll never forget, in my first interview ever, I was asked, what products do we sell? And I'm like, oh my goodness, I have no idea, because I did not research. But the truth is that information is available online. It's on their website. So if you go into an interview unprepared, you are definitely not going to perform well. So rather than sitting and saying, they never told me what I did wrong, practice in advance. I mean, find somebody to do a practice interview with you. They'll give you feedback about how you answer your questions. They'll give you feedback about what you can say. Now that we are virtual, they'll tell you how to behave. There's a tendency, for example, when we are virtual, to look down because we're trying to see the person we're talking to. Whereas on your laptop, or even if you use your phone, your camera is direct ahead. So simple things like those can actually be feedback that you could take, rather than sitting and waiting for a HR manager somewhere or a recruiter somewhere to tell you this is the reason why you did not go ahead. And the other thing is take advantage of what's out there. Now, I don't know if people on this call today know this, but LinkedIn actually has a job preparation section. They literally give you a list of all the questions that you could potentially be asked during an interview. They allow you to practice a video session, and they even give you possible answers to those questions. There is no reason to go into an interview unprepared. And you will, if you're prepared, you will know part of the reason why you didn't make it. In my case, another interview, I got there late. It didn't take a genius for me to know I got to the interview late. Come on. That does not augur well with a potential employer. So do your research, follow all the basic rules, show up on time, give your apologies if at all there's something that's come up, and do it in advance. And then don't expect that they are going to go easy on you just because you know them. So that's another common thing. So I'd say, rather than waiting for your formal feedback, be proactive towards how you prepare for the interview. That helps you already know some of the areas where it could potentially let you down. And when you do get feedback, yay. When you don't get feedback, keep pushing on. That's what I'd say. I'm sure Jackie can add some interesting points to that one.
Wow, even before Jackie jumps into that one, I really like the HR aspect that you introduced. Recently, I think about a week ago, I was in a forum with another HR practitioner who said, actually, right now with the online, a lot of interviews online, the probability of getting now feedback is less than before. So in fact, her encouragement was, we need now to start getting used to no feedback because they are overwhelmed. There are many job applications, and they may not be able to give feedback to everybody. But the other thing she also highlighted was the way when you're going for a physical interview, I don't know, I think we bring our A game there. And now with online, it's like we've dropped the ball on some things that are very obvious. And she even talked about an interview that was supposed to begin at 8, but at 8:05 is when the candidate is trying to maneuver around their camera. So already, now you're already being judged from that point. Another one, she just said, yes, sometimes mistakes or things happen that are unprepared. Like you're in a room, you're working from home now, you're on your camera and your child walks by. And that happened when she was interviewing somebody for a customer relation job. And the way this person just reacted to the child being there and interrupting, she just said, we can't hire her for customer relations. That's how she will talk to our our customers, our clients. So it seems now that with online interviews, it's like even the stakes are now higher than before. So, I liked what you said even about having somebody to go through your CV, somebody to just check through. And I think even this is where coaches come in, because with coaches, they can even do a mock interview where, you just assume that this is the interview, you're interviewing me, and you give me feedback. And even before I go for my interview, I feel very much prepared. So Jackie, maybe you can just jump in and add on what we have left out.
All right, so on feedback, one of the things that's helping us give feedback a lot is automation. So with systems, and unfortunately it becomes a bit cold because you get a system feedback, but you will get feedback. Most of us, especially those who are quite seasoned in HR, we give a lot of feedback even in interviews. For most people who have been through interviews with me, by the time you leave that interview room, you know where you have niched, you know that you're going to go forward or not go forward, because again, every opportunity for us is just to build somebody. At times, we might not give feedback where the process is simply sending in CVs. But like you're saying, one, they're too many. Secondly, to be honest, it's annoying when I'm asking for a role for, let's say, how do I put it? A coding, developer. And then you finished Form 4 this year in July, and you sent your CV. It's a senior developer role. Did you really, really, really think you were going to it? Really? So I feel as much as some of us are trying to throw darts in the air, let's be a bit more specific. Okay. Other types of CVs I don't completely respond to are CVs that have no titles. You just sent a CV. Am I supposed to open and imagine what you'd like me to do for you? Or there's no courtesy, there's no hi, there's no nothing, it's just sent. Or you sent to like the whole global world. Sent to, including people who are not even in my industry. Really? So that I feel is also propelling a lot of exhaustion from HRs and not being able to give feedback. Because honestly, even you, when you were sending that email, if you expected feedback from me, there's a misunderstanding of my role and what I'm supposed to do in your life. Yeah, so I feel if you really want feedback, do something about your email, your application. At times, like yesterday, I read a very interesting application where somebody was saying, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. And guess what? You need me. Like, whoa, okay, I'm married, but wow, let's read on, you know. And he says, my experience is here and here, and he goes to break down, and I could see a bit of humor here and there. He didn't have what I was looking for, but I called and I said, hi, that's an amazing CV. This is the gap that you have in your CV. The next time, build on this, and you might just get yourself into a panel. And so sometimes when your application is a bit interesting or respectful, oftentimes when I'm a bit free on Fridays, I actually try and make the calls. Tell you, hi, I saw your CV, but I didn't shortlist you for this and that, but try this area, or try this industry, or try this. So HRs are getting a bit fatigued with, you know, for lack of a better word, too much irrelevance being thrown at us, and it's tiring. So if guys really want feedback, come on, send something sensible. Take time with your application, you know? Yeah.
Wow, thank you. I think one last question that is in the chat, and this one is for Asim, where somebody was asking, how do they switch from employment to becoming an investor or business partner?
I feel like that has already been answered by something Jackie was talking about earlier. You know, why do you want to do something? Have you identified a gap? Have you identified the business partner? It's not a, I think you have to first know why you want to do it before you then ask the question of how. And if you know why you want to do it, then the how will kind of figure itself out. So you really need to know why you want to become an investor, or and from experience, I think if you're looking at becoming a business partner, really get to know your business partner, and also make sure you understand why they are in partnership. Have you guys got the same ideas? Do you have the same vision? That vision needs to be worth a few years. So really look at what you're investing in, who you're investing in, and why you want to do that. The how will work itself out.
Yeah, I think it ties down to even what was earlier talked about. What is your interest? What are your areas of interest, you know? So yeah, thank you for that. Another question that has just come in, and even as we answer this, maybe the panelists can start thinking about their closing remarks, even as we wind up the session. So this one, somebody says, hello there, one of us from Tarpo here. So Asim, I imagine this must be one of your staff. I believe there's a very thin line between giving up and learning when to let go. So how do you know when to let go on a dream that's just not working for you? Jackie, how do I know? I'm just insisting on this dream that I'm on it and it doesn't seem to be working for me. When do I know to let go and try something else?
Yeah, you keep shooting blanks. That's actually a very sad question. Very sad question from where I'm sitting. Now, there's a thin line between giving up, okay? For you to stop doing something, it needs to be what you call an educated guess. Before you wake up and decide, I'm going to give this up, you need to have looked for information and clarity as to why it's not working. Otherwise, it's at that point you say, it's like a lost opportunity. But if you've actually learned from it and just changed the direction that you're going, that's not giving up. That's simply reacting to the clarity that you've gotten. That's simply changing your direction. It's not giving up. Remember, guys, what's the bigger picture here? It's enjoying what I'm doing and hopefully being successful while doing it, right? So the moment you feel like something is not working for you, be clear to have the knowledge of why it's not working. Ask people around you, I started this business, I'm failing, why? You know, KRA will tell you 80% of all businesses that are open shut down within 2 years. 2 years, that's what's going on with entrepreneurship. Why? find out. Okay, now if you're going to make an adjustment, which will involve you changing that course of life, then that's not giving up. Okay, now that's now when you say, I have learned. I have learned, I'm going to let go of that line of business and I'm going to start another line of business, right? Back to me and Asim, what gap are you feeling? What gap? Am I still feeling it? I was selling paper bags. Now I'm selling masks. Is that giving up? The bigger dream is still there. The bigger path is still there. So when I find people just giving up, oftentimes it's because you're not taking time to look for information and knowledge as to where you're failing. And guess what? You will fail again. It's going to become a cycle and a cycle and a cycle. So I prefer you get stuck where you are until you learn those lessons. Otherwise, this is going to break your heart, it's going to break your life. So if you feel stuck, and I'm happy that Susan has offered a 20-minute free session, please take that up. Let her help you identify, why am I feeling stuck? Where am I messing? Before you move to the next lesson. But as long as you've learned, it was an educated move, that's not giving up. That's growth.
I think we learn a lot even from our failures, right? Only that we are so focused on it being a failure that we miss the lesson, but there's something there to learn. Thank you. Thank you so much. So as we are waiting to get your closing remarks, Jackie, let me ask Asim to just elaborate something I read on his bio about the events and conferences that he has silently helped put Kenya on the world map. I'm very curious on this one. Maybe this one is for me, not for the participants.
The one that I can easily talk about is the Rhino Charge. It's a well-known event, but there's still a lot of people within Kenya who don't know about it. But it is known now as one of the toughest motor sporting events in the world. My involvement has gone from I joined the organizing side as the one in charge of spectator experience. Somehow I ended up involved in the aircraft logistics. From there, I was involved in the communication aspects. And every time I've been involved in something, I've done something to improve it. And since I've been on the committee, it's been 6 years. I think we've raised almost 1 billion shillings in those 6 years. So that we've made the event bigger, we've made it structured, we brought in more and more money that's going into conservation, and we're getting a lot of international recognition now. So the Rhino Charge is now part of the Magical Kenya stuff that goes out overseas as well. So that's one event that we put silently on the map.
Nice to hear that, and thank you for making Kenya proud. When we see ourselves there in the international forums, now we have a face to some of the people who, have played a role here and there. Thank you. All right, I think we've answered all the questions on the chat. Unless there is really a burning question, I'll just give one person one chance to ask a question if there's something really burning that must be addressed here. Okay, and on that note, somebody just dropped one in the chat. So they say there's been conflicting information on the structure of CV for fresh graduates. What is the best structure? Is there a template? Is there one best structure really? Yeah, Jackie?
Now, no, there is no best structure, and structures will keep evolving, guys. What's important is what content are you putting there? Tell me what I want to know. Yeah, I know at times there are structures that are coming right now with many people giving me like a one-pager, but at times when I'm going into senior management, director, recruitments, I'm like, one-pager, I'm going to trust you like 2 billion turnover with a one-pager. I want a bio. A bio will do better for me than a CV. Right. So it depends on what you're applying for, but mostly what content are you putting in there? Again, please don't give me 5 pages of information. Just simple, precise. I don't care if it has colors or not. Just be precise in what I want. I'm asking for an accountant with CPA. Okay. Tell me, do you have it or not? Do not tell me how you started in school, how you started in career, how you had the cows, and just let's be specific. I've seen sometimes people reducing their CVs for positions, you know, whereby you say, I don't want to say I have a master's, if the job is asking for a diploma, put it there, but put a note. Yes, I'm aware of a master's, but also a diploma because I want the skill. All I have is the academics. Put a note to it. Yeah, don't minimize yourself. Don't, just put a note on it, but structure for CV, just tell us what you want to know. Tell us to remove.
All right, thank you. So maybe Jackie and Asim, is Susan still with us? I'm looking for you and I can't seem to see you.
I am still here. Power Manenos threw me out, so I am now back.
Okay, all right. I guess that's why I was looking for you, but I couldn't find you. So maybe we'll start with Jackie and then we'll go to Asim, and Susan can end it by just giving us your closing remarks. And then Lorraine will talk about the goodies that we have received from our panelists here.
All right, so my closing remarks is network. Network, network, network. You're never too young to network. Okay, these evenings, instead of running around with policemen chasing each other, find a club online. Find many. Spend time. Network has become very cheap. Network, network, network. And when you're networking, please go in front of a mirror, practice what you're going to say. Oftentimes, there's only one chance to make an impression. Don't know when that chance will come. So if you're going, let's say, to Rotary, ask yourself, who am I joining? Is it to give or to make or to network? If it's to network, what foot do you want to put forward? Practice that foot. Toastmasters, what do you want to bring out? Practice it. By the time you go there, make that impression. Please, please, network a lot. That's what will open doors. That's what will give you the knowledge that you need in this life.
Great. And Jackie, if someone wants to reach out to you, we could share, I don't know, a LinkedIn link. If you're free to share your contacts, and the same goes for Sim and Susan, please drop it in the chat.
Okay, I'll drop in my LinkedIn. I prefer that. Numbers have so many calls, chances are I'll ignore you and you'll get hurt. So let's start on LinkedIn for now.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's great. Please drop your link there. Asim, closing remarks?
Yeah, kind of like what Jackie said about networking, I want to talk about exposure. You know, just get out there and get as much information about anything and everything that you can, so that you can figure out what is of interest, what is of not. And you might find something new, something that you've never heard of. Like a few years ago, I was on a course and I found out there's a job called futurist, and the job description for futurist is to figure out what the future is going to look like. So exposure.
Great. Thank you. Networking, exposure. Susan, let's come to you. Closing remarks?
Be known for something. Now, I want everyone to take a piece of paper and on that piece of paper say, I am the go-to person for dash. Meaning anytime your name comes up, you need to be the person people are thinking about, and you need to be the person who's top of mind. And this perfectly falls in with what Jackie has said and what Asim has said. When you network, people begin to know what you can offer and what you can do. When you get exposure, people actually get to also again know you, and they also help, and it also helps you know what other opportunities are out there. Simply because what you want to do doesn't exist doesn't mean you can't create it. You can actually become the go-to person for that thing. So be known for something.
on something good, not being chased by policemen for conning people or for being very slippery and not truthful. Be known for something positive, something that solves a problem in this world.
Thank you. So network, exposure, be known for something. I hope every participant can leave here with something, just one that you can apply that will transform your life. We want to thank so much our panelists. We want to thank Jackie, Asim, Susan for spending the entire afternoon with us and just sharing their knowledge, their wisdom with us. And I really hope that everybody leaves here having learned something. And I think I see in the chat you've posted your contacts or a way in which people can get in touch via LinkedIn. And Lorraine will just tell us about the goodies that our panelists have offered. Please take advantage of this. They don't come every day. So when you get an opportunity, grab it. Grab it. Thank you.
I'm laughing because, you know, Jackie was there inviting us for lunch at Hemingway's. Asim was asking for coffee. So the only legit one I saw there is from Susan, the 20 minutes. So perhaps, yeah, you try go look for Jackie at Hemingway's. She's a very busy person. I know her. But that was fantastic. Guys, I mean, people that are logged in here, let me tell you something. And let me tell you a little bit. And I really thank the panelists for the closing remarks. You know, networking, exposure, be known for something. You know, when Susan posted that on Facebook the other day, or was it LinkedIn? And she said, if she came to your house at 2 a.m. and there's that one thing that should ask of you, what would it be? Let me tell you, Susan, I am still thinking. It's one of those very rare questions. And I think it's something to ponder, even for us as young people. Epic Lorraine Life Events was born this year in February. And the questions I've been getting the whole of this week from Monday is, how do I have all these networks with all these big people? I think even Asim had mentioned yesterday, you know, some of the panelists that we've had this week. And I'll tell you, it's all about networking. That's it. I think it's taken one phone call, you know, to each of the panelists we've had since Monday, and they have said yes. Because I've had exposure, and I love that I'm quoting everything that you have said. I've had exposure to different things. I'm a member of Rotary. I network. Anybody who knows me knows that I am another queen of networking, like Sarah this morning. I will speak to everybody. I will jump at risks. When I began this, like we were laughing with Susan earlier, everybody thought you're out of your mind. It is 1 week to this International Youth Week, and then you want to do it for a whole week. Who does that? Where will you get panelists? You have no sponsors. You have nothing. But guess what, people? Believe in that one thing that you want to do and go for it. And another little thing I want to encourage the young people, and this for me is something I have learned, and why I really want to commend Team Set Africa. More often than not, when you ask young people to do something, they will always say, if you're not paying me, I'm not going to do it. We had Pan-Africa Women's Day the other day, and somebody called me and they said they do, they're not a moderator. They are a what? What is the other one when you're not a moderator?
Rapporteur.
They're rapporteurs. And they said, oh, I would be very interested to rapporteur for your event. And I said, you're very welcome to do it. We have no money to pay you because we're a young company, we're starting up, unless you can do it for free. And they say, oh, absolutely not. I never do anything for free. Guess what? They attended that event. By the end of that event, they called and said, I am so sorry. I did not realize the panelists you had. I mean, that even made it worse because I thought you were going to be a rapporteur just because of the panelists that we had. I mean, always offer yourself for free sometimes. I mean, if you can do something and do it well, please do it, because guess what? So much will come out of this week through the panelists. We have so much we can do together. And, you know, I cannot afford to pay these guys. You cannot afford to pay for the courses. We've attended this for 2.5 hours. You know, we're meant to end at 2, but we're still here and, you know, having a wonderful time. They have offered of themselves for free. And guess what? Something will come out of this for them and even for you. So that's my parting shot for you people. Please take risks, offer of yourselves, that thing that you're really good at, like Jackie was saying. expose yourself, do it for somebody that you think you can do. If it is those posters that you're able to do so well, please do it for somebody who is struggling out there, and you shall reap the rewards. So without further ado, I invite, is it Hillary O'Brien who is giving a vote of thanks? And then tomorrow, even as we were talking about being chased by police, we shall be handling youth in politics, youth in the private sector. What is your opportunity as in the political world, in the human rights world? You know, we have been speaking about different areas, but you also need to start taking up positions now. You know, we can't just leave it for the same old people to continue. So please stay tuned tomorrow morning. We'll only have one session tomorrow as we mark International Youth Day, and we shall be going political. So Hillary or Brian or somebody who's giving us a vote of thanks.
Yes, Lorraine, I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hillary Kimani. Hillary Kimani, Marketing and Customer Relationship Lead from Team South Africa. And I want to sum up everything I've gotten from morning up until to this very moment with just a statement. I want to give the credentials of who exactly said it. This is how it goes. A burning desire is the starting point of all accomplishments. Just like a weak fire cannot give back much heat, a weak desire cannot bring forth great results. It has been all about networking, pushing yourself beyond the limit, going for it all through the day. I've learned the sessions, the panelists, the audience for their time, the moderator for keeping the harmony in the session. Not so many of us can do that. Thank you, everyone. Our panelists, most so this afternoon, our key speaker, Jackie Muloga. The 20 minutes, we are sure gonna take advantage of that. Our panelists, that is Asim Shah and Susan Kiamba, great insights, great nuggets of wisdom. And we are sure we are gonna put that into practice as we head out. To our moderator, Esther Kirago, you have been with us all through the morning, the energy, the coordination, taking of the question and handling the chaos in between asking the question and the moderation. I loved the energy you have given us, your time also. To the audience, most young people are not patient. They want a 30-minute session and they are out. I've seen people here from morning up until now, engaging us with questions, keeping through. And I hope each and every one of us has taken a thing home and we shall utilize it. To you, Lorraine, an epic Lorraine Life events. This has been great. Thank you for the opportunity to partner in this and hosting the event. So much effort put in. We thank you. And everyone else who has been in here, we hope to see you tomorrow as we celebrate the International Youth Day. The event shall be kicking on at 9. See you then. Asanteni sana.
Asante sana. Thank you, everybody. And we can end with a word of grace. And now may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen. Asanteni sana. Go spread the word and enjoy yourselves.
And take advantage of the freebies.
Yes, please do.
Thank you.
Asanteni.
Thanks.